Hi everyone, Philip Murray Bandura here, presenting to you today for Mark Klimtberg's class on queer methodologies. Today I'm going to be looking at the artist Douglas Coupland and his 2014 show, Everywhere is Anywhere is Anything is Everything, that debuted at the Vancouver Art Gallery. And in 2014, I was lucky enough to be in Vancouver and see the show in person. It really captivated me with its expansive uses of different materials and really playful use of things like Lego and found object, which really drew me to it and also felt like it opened up possibilities of what my own art practice could be. So we'll move right along here. Douglas Coupland was born in 1961 on a Royal Canadian Air Force Base, and then his family moved to West Vancouver in 1965. And he grew up in a very idealistic sort of utopian setting in a West Vancouver suburb that's very mid-century modern and straddled the line between the beauty of nature and the hustle and bustle of urban Vancouver. And this experience really shaped Douglas Coupland's ideas around society and utopia and possibilities. Here are a couple pictures of Douglas Coupland on the right-hand side. You can see behind him one of the work's towers that we're going to be looking at and see that it's all constructed of Lego. And one of the early experiences Douglas Coupland talks about in the catalog is seeing the show at the Vancouver Art Gallery by Roy Lichtenstein, seeing this series called Bull. And this pop art also just really expanded his own young mind into what art could be and allowed him to see the world through a new, exciting lens. And this was the first time Douglas Coupland had been in the Vancouver Art Gallery and the first time he'd ever been in an art museum. This led me into thinking about Joseph Esteban Munoz and the book Cruising Utopia, the then and there of queer futurity, and specifically the chapter on queers, punks, and the utopian performance. And for me, I drew the connection in my own mind of the Vancouver Art Gallery really being a stage where people can perform and show ideas of what art could be and what life could be. And that's very much what is talked about in Queers, Punks, and the Utopian Performance in terms of gay bars and specifically stages for drag performances, and this safe space being created where people can perform sort of idealistic utopian ideas of what their future could be. And I think there's a real connection there. Now moving on to Douglas's artworks, and since they're all made of Lego, I thought I'd give a very brief history of Lego. And Lego was actually created by Ola Kurt Christensen, and he was trained as a carpenter. He was born in 1891 in Denmark and died in 1958. His carpentry business was actually unsuccessful to begin with, and then unfortunately his wife passed away and he was left with 5 kids, and he decided to go and start up making high quality wooden toys. This led to some success and then later led into him exploring ideas of plastic injected cast toys and led to the Lego brick. And one of the really special things about the Lego brick, there was other plastic bricks out there, but it was really the technology that was created in terms of snapping the bricks together. At first, the bricks would just fall apart, but then they came up with the idea of putting the internal tube structure on the inside of the Lego so that they would stay together. And in Danish, the word Lego roughly translates to play well. So what they were trying to do is really create a toy that would be expansive for children to use. Now on to the Modern House 345. This was actually a design kit by Lego that you could purchase. And Douglas Coupland put 100 of these together in his exhibition to really talk about, in his mind, growing up in a utopian idea and the endless creative potential, both in its fantastical sort of utopian ideas and dystopian perspective that can be looked upon. So here's just a few images of that Lego house. And then I just wanted to clarify quickly, even though I'm looking at a few queer methodologies in this talk, Douglas Coupland himself is a gay man, but that's not really what I'm talking about. But I also became interested in when he came out, and it was actually in 2005 in The Advocate. And it was one of those things where he sort of said, like, I wish I'd sort of come out earlier. It wasn't really a big deal to me, but it became complicated with all the interviews he was doing, and people were interested, so he put it out there and sort of left it at that. So moving on to the next project, the towers. And the towers were actually partially crowdsourced, which is really interesting and made me think of Sarah Ahmed and her chapter on her book, What's the Use? On the Uses of Use, on queer use. So the idea of using something in its not original intent. And I think with Douglas Coupland's work, using crowdsourcing the sculptures themselves, which I'll talk about in a second here, and then also having the Lego appear in a gallery as a sort of a high-end product itself. And over the years, Coupland noticed how people at Lego building events cannibalized structures left behind by previous builders, in the process creating radical hybrid forms that artists hijacked this mode of creation and produced towers, which consists of crowdsourced Lego structures he then selected, modified, assembled into towers, and then combined into a complex urban landscape, adding his own forms. So he had a few building events at the Vancouver Art Gallery where you could go in and have some wine, or with kids, and he would take those pieces and put them into his final sculpture, which is sort of a utopian futuristic city. And this led me into thinking about Karl Marx and commodity fetishism and how the Lego itself had been re-commodified. And in commodity fetishism, we're not thinking of it in a sexual way. We're thinking about the focus on the object and how in a capitalist society, the exchange of a product for money, the interaction is between just those elements, and the social relation is sort of left out. Where I feel like in Douglas Coupland's pieces, especially the towers, you have a re-injection of social capital and social exchange by having other people involved in making the towers, and then creating a new relationship to them. But then ultimately they are commodified by then being up for sale afterwards. Anyway, I hope you found this talk insightful and you learned maybe a few things and might want to look back into any of these ideas or Douglas Coupland's work. And thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.